This F1 Drivers Championship 2025 odds edition of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code RACE-SGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rebet, a new sports book available in 45 states. Download Rebet in your app store and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And we're also brought to you by the SGPN College Football Playoff Challenge, free to enter, and a $1,000 grand prize. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/CFP to enter today.
Driver, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you ask me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
Just because there's no racing things on the track doesn't mean there's not racing things to talk about. It is, of course, the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Cody Zeeb. I'm Rod Villagomez, and Cody's exasperated sighs because, well, I got to tell you, a lot has happened over the last 24 hours. Yeah.
Stuff's happened, Rod. What are you talking about? It's off season. It's just, just counting down the days. We've flipped another page on the calendar today, counting down the days to the Daytona 500. And I think that was it, right?
Yeah, nothing. It's just been a boring cricket-filled day in the NASCAR world. But no, my friend, no. There has been exciting revelations that have taken place.
Big news breaking today, Rod, which is great news, I think, in my opinion. 2311 and Front Row Motorsports have obtained a preliminary injunction to race charter teams in 2025, as well as the approval of the SHR transfers. So what this means is 2311, of course, is suing NASCAR. They couldn't sign the current charter deal because that charter deal says you can't sue NASCAR, and they wanted to sue NASCAR. So by signing the deal, they wouldn't have been able to sue NASCAR. So they asked the judge for an injunction to say, hey, let us operate like the other teams under this new charter agreement while we figure out the lawsuit part of things and how to fix it going forward. NASCAR said, no, you didn't sign the charter agreement, so you're going to have to run as open teams. And so they appealed it the first time, and 2311 lost. 2311 and Front Row lost. And they said, no, you need to come back and show us where you're going to be irreparably harmed if we, don't place this injunction. 2311 Front Row came back. They showed how they would be irreparably harmed. And here we are. So the injunction has been made. So what this means going forward for 2025 is 2311 will have, so they have to, let's go back. They have to they have to approve the sale of the SHR charters, right? SHR currently had been holding these two charters that they couldn't sell. The Trackhouse one, of course, is done, gone. They already signed their charter. It's good, but they're holding the front row one. They're holding the 2311 one and waiting for the sale to be approved by NASCAR. NASCAR wouldn't approve it because these teams wouldn't sign the charter agreement. So now that has to be sold and done. So Gene Haas, Tony Stewart, you're getting a payday. Good. It's out of their hands. They don't have to worry about it. They don't have to try and lease the charters next couple of years or whatever while it all gets figured out. And it just gets taken care of. So that is done. And then that means these teams, front row and 2311, will operate as 3-car teams in 2025. Guaranteed entry into the Daytona 500, which we had talked about before, might be an issue. Guaranteed to make all the races with all 3 cars. They'll get all of the deals and money and everything else that all the other teams get. And at the same time, they're still fighting their lawsuit to get better things on the deal like they want, which looks like it might not really go to court until closer to the start of the 2026 season. So this could really be it for a while as far as the lawsuit's concerned.
You know, you called it, though. I mean, this is nothing that surprised anybody that listened to the show, because you even said right when it happened, we probably should not be fearful that this is going to make anything difficult in the 2025 season, because
I saw some Facebook commenters today, Rod. Well, you better watch out in inspection now. They're going to fail first of all.
That's not how this works.
Okay, if you're going to do that, Tyler Reddick was just in the championship 4. He failed, right? Oh, wait, he didn't fail. Okay. That would have been the time to flex that muscle. You can't just go disqualify them from every inspection ever going forward because, hey, we're already suing you? As long as our car is within the rules, are they going to be able to get away with anything extra? No, but teams today, it's not what's a lot of people maybe don't realize this, Rod. It's not 1979 anymore. It's not like you give Wally a cheeseburger and slip him a $10 bill and he'll let you put a fucking nitrous bottle in the car. Like, it's all done by computers. That's all measured out. The computer spits out a report. You're legal. You're not legal. Sometimes they get creative, find ways, but that's not going to be the case. Everything's going to be as normal. And you know, this is why we've talked drivers' championship odds, win total odds. None of this affects any of that. And that this today ruling affirms that even more.
Yeah, and I'll tell you more about my thoughts in a second, but I want to first tell you to check out SGPN's first annual college football playoff challenge. You can pick sides and totals for every game with a chance to win $1,000 in a grand prize. It's free to enter, just like everything else in this network. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/CFP. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/CFP. I am convinced that there is just a portion of this world, I'm not even going to say this nation, this world, that is consumed with conspiracy theories, that is consumed with the fact that everybody is out to be shiesty and just a bad human being. And that's not how this works in this. Because imagine, okay, look, if you go to 3, 4, 5 races in a row and all of a sudden front row and Trackhouse or 2311 rather start failing inspections, right? And it's just them. And all of a sudden that 4 or 5 races down the road, you're like, why is it that that's a pattern that you can't deny that's retribution? Like, why? No one's going to be out there going, you know what? I'm definitely going to start punishing these teams by failing inspection, because we all see it. Everybody sees it. So there's no hiding behind, oh, well, they just failed inspection. Not 4 or 5 times. Not when they didn't do it at all last year. Like,
right.
No, we're not dumb.
Yeah. And like, they might get picky on some things. They might hold a flag somewhere. They might throw a flag but to think that you're going to get everybody in charge of all those things on the same page, that they're going to take the integrity of calling the sport correctly, like, it's just, that's unrealistic, and that's not how it's going to be.
Cody,
there might be a case somewhere.
Cody, no, there is retribution coming. 2311 should be penalized every single time they get on the track for even trying to sue NASCAR. Screw it. Yeah. Who cares?
And the other thing, too, just to sort of put a bow on this lawsuit thing, obviously this is a loss for NASCAR, quote unquote, in the courtroom, right? But I think this is a win for NASCAR. You don't want Michael Jordan's team. These are 2 teams expanding from 2-car teams to 3-car teams, wanting to continue to grow with the sport, investing a lot of things. 2311 just built that massive airspeed shop. That's a great place for fans to come in, get behind the scenes looks, all sorts of stuff. It's going to produce great winning race cars going forward. the regular season champion from last year. All of these things. You don't, I get NASCAR's position and they don't want to give up too much. We all understand that, right? But this is still a win for the sport in a general sense of let's keep these teams here. And really, like, this is how it probably should be anyways. Like, this is the agreement everybody else is on. You run on this program until we figure all this out, which is, that seems to me to be the most logical way of, okay, we're all going to be on the same program. Let's battle this out. We'll figure it out. Maybe 23-11 front row lose, and then they have to pay money back or whatever the case might be going forward. But at least everybody's on the same plan program, and we can sort of put this away, let the courts figure it out, and go from there.
And if anything, too, it's a small-ish wake-up call for NASCAR that they are not all powerful, that there is opportunity, I think. And, well, maybe if they win, maybe that just means and solidifies their monopoly on the entire racing community. But, again, we live in a world now where you can split your interest a million different ways. And so if there was another rival that would pop up, would it be as big as NASCAR? Probably not. It would, and even if it was, it'd take decades, if not centuries, to get as popular.
Well, we saw this with IndyCar and IRL, right? Mm-hmm. When they split, it destroyed this open wheel racing in the United States. I mean, IndyCar has not come anywhere close to what it once was, other than in the Indy 500. And, like F1's resurging, and IndyCar's been growing again too, but not like that really broke what IndyCar was at the time. We definitely don't want to see that in NASCAR. And then, so some of the things that 2311 Front Row used to win this lawsuit, Tyler Reddick, Rod, today, actually, December 18th, would have been able to begin negotiating with other teams because his contract has a stipulation if they don't have a charter, he's a free agent. If I was Rick Hendrick, do you know how much money I would pay Tyler Reddick to come drive the 48 car?
Well, I was going to say 48.
I would have been a $48 billion. I don't care. Like, if you could get Tyler Reddick over there in that 48 car all of a sudden, because, hey, you don't have a ride. Yeah, you like racing for Michael and Denny, and it's been fun, and you did good. But look what this team's done, and this legacy, this great giant we've built over here, this well-oiled machine will give you anything and everything you want. Like, maybe Tyler doesn't take it. No, but and probably never any intention of Tyler to leave. But the fact remains that he could have, which is the point of their argument in the lawsuit. He could have left. He could have taken some other ride or whatever. And a team like Hendrick would be silly to not explore that option, right? So, again, that puts the kibosh to this. Reddick's contract continues as is. And, of course, Reddick, Bubba, and Riley Herbst will be their three drivers next year. And then for Front Row, we're still waiting on that third driver announcement, but all signs and everything sort of points to Zane Smith being the guy.
Could you imagine that phone call from Michael Jordan if you're Tyler Reddick on like last night's phone call, right? They got to be on the phone with each other. And Michael's like, all right, listen, Tyler, I know, I know, we all know, but please, my friend, please let this play out. Don't try to entertain any other offers, because you got to figure that this guy is the prettiest girl at the ball, or prettiest guy at the ball, regardless.
Well, already was, and that's why they went and specifically locked him up a year and a half ahead of time, and it ended up working out that he got released from RCR, and Kyle Busch went over there, and everything worked out. But he was already the prettiest girl at the ball, and he's even prettier now than he was then. And I think that other teams would have been salivating at the opportunity to even entertain finding a way to get him on their team.
Wine and dine and try to sign. So yeah, I'm telling you, it's, I mean, we dodged a huge bullet, guys. So 2025 will go off the way it's supposed to. Everything is going to be the way it should be. And I'm excited to see 2311 as a three chartered team. And really, honestly, in a kind of sadistic way, masochistic, whatever, in a twisted way, I want to see Front Row, because there's a little bit of promise in top tens in that team. So I feel like
they're building something, and obviously continuing to invest, signing drivers to multi-year deals, which they've never done previously, getting an extra charter. Obviously those are not cheap. We haven't seen or heard numbers paid for these two SHR charters, but you have to guess probably somewhere in the $40 million range.
48.
So Everything's 48 with Rod. Oh,
Everything's 48 with me. That's how I grew up. That's how I want to continue. But all right, that's exciting. That's great news because now we don't have to worry about it. We can put all that behind us, and now we can really start speculating on how this is all going to impact the upcoming 2025 season. Don't have to worry about Michael Jordan trying to slam dunk NASCAR anymore, at least for this year. And we're all good to go. So, but we are here today because there's some Formula One odds out. And obviously, since the Formula One, the F1 Gambling Podcast show had to close up shop, we'll take on the mantle. Those hosts were really good, but we'll continue to bring you some F1 odds when they come in and when they're relevant. And championship drivers, they're relevant because guess what? It could be a race for the championship next season as things have shook up in that entire circuit over there. So we will do all of that, but I need to tell you first about an exciting sponsor that we have. Watch me push buttons. I'm gonna do this. I love trying to get everything ready when I've been talking too much. All right, let's talk to you about Underdog Fantasy, right? Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all of sports. You can win up to 1,000x with Underdog Streaks. Underdog is always making it easier to win with profit boosts and gimme pick'ems. NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, soccer, and so much more. You can now use specials and boosts on all of your flexed entries. Going to be using mine on a Cortland Sutton first TD, higher than a half of a first TD. It's difficult over there in Broncos land to try to pick somebody to score a first touchdown, but I think Cortland Sutton can get it done against the Chargers. So give me that. You can sign up in the meantime with our promo code RACE SGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com promo code RACE SGPN. We're brought to you by Rebet. Rebet is a new social sports book available in 45 states. Plenty of betting opportunities are available on Rebet. It's always easy to use, and it's great for people that live in states where traditional sports books, California, I'm choking, may be restricted. Download Rebet in the App Store. I kind of really was, and then I choked myself up even more. But you can download Rebet in the App Store and use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. That's Rebet, promo code SGPN. Some sportsbook out there needs to put a line out as to the over-under year in which California will legalize sports gambling. If
I'll take the over, Rod.
I think the over, whatever it is, even if it's set at like 2035, may very well be the case because we are progressive in a lot of things, but heaven forbid we gamble on sports over here. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat with you. We can place bets at the sports book inside one of the 3 casinos in the entire state, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, I know Nevada probably plays it heavy. That the cousin over there that's leaning on our neck trying to say, no, you can't do this, but whatevs. All right, Cody, Formula One wrapped up its season a couple of weeks ago in Abu Dhabi. It was the same result as the year before in the Drivers' Champion as Max Verstappen locked it up the race before. In fact, so
two races
before. Yeah, he'd been champion for a couple races.
Yeah, 4 championships in a row, by the way.
That dude is
yeah.
smashing it. But the surprise, McLaren comes away with the Constructors' Championship, followed by Ferrari and Red Bull, the reigning Constructors' Champion, finishing in third. Oof, Cody, that was a big kick in the pants.
Yeah, no, so the season's, if you've sort of just watched F1, not really watched it, but paid attention to the headlines over the past couple of years. Max Verstappen won like 23 races in 2023. Has dominated the series for multiple years. This was his 4th championship in a row. And the 2024 season started off, same story, different season. Red Bull won 2 every week. Verstappen wins a bunch of races until they didn't. And all of a sudden, McLaren shows up, and you're like, oh, shit, okay. Well, then Ferrari shows up, and you're like, well, we got two teams sort of vying for this. And then, Rod, Mercedes shows up too. And so you had 4 different teams all really that could win on any given week going forward to the end. Obviously, the Constructors title then heated up. McLaren takes that. Ferrari ends up passing Red Bull as well. Now, Max had built such a cushion that he was able to just protect that and still lock up the championship. But going into 2025 now, Rod, it is wide open. I mean, there is probably 6-7 different guys that really have a legit shot at winning this title. And the odds reflect that, because in the past couple of seasons, I mean, last year, I think Max Verstappen was minus 500, 600 going into the season, and it was just a foregone conclusion he was going to win the title. Obviously, he does. But also, by the way, the Constructors title was about price the same, and they didn't win it. So there is that. But yeah, definitely a lot of guys that can win. If you don't know, there's 20 cars on the F1 grid, Rod, and there has been a lot of musical chairs this offseason. NASCAR, there's been quite a few changes and driver shakeups, but a lot in F1 and some massive shakeups. Had big news today. Well, news today, not unexpected, but Red Bull has released Sergio Perez. So he will no longer be the second guy to Max at Red Bull. So this is the one team that we still have the one question mark, right? And that are actually
there's a couple of teams.
There's a couple of teams that have question marks, but this is the main one that's going to be concerning today's episode. Drivers' Championship, guys that actually have a legit shot at winning. We don't know who the second Red Bull driver is, but Rod, I will tell you that it does not matter, because there is almost zero chance that the second driver to Max Verstappen at Red Bull even has a shot at the title. I think that when we get to Ferrari, when we get to McLaren, these guys, both of them have equal footing or they both can win the title, right? Red Bull, I don't think the second driver, no matter who it is going to be able to get that done. So I just wanted to sort of mention that at the top. Doesn't affect probably anything that we talk about today, because Max is the guy over there. They're always going to bend over to Max, and they will make that driver give things up to Max without hesitation, as we've seen before.
Yeah, and it's likely that Sergio, there's not very many other rides out there, but I will say he's not locked up for a ride yet. But as we've seen in seasons past, like a lot of these second seats, especially, look, there's a lot of young guys that are making some starts in that, and we'll go over them all in a second, but there's a lot of young guys out there, and there's a lot of folks that are actually on the hot seat as well, because that second Racing Bull car is not necessarily locked up yet either. There's been a few guesses as to who's going to be joining Yuki Tsunoda in that, but I mean, I'm not saying that Sergio Perez is going to get that, but if that second driver, or even if Yuki, because Yuki's kind of slid off a little bit. I know he signed the contract, but we've seen some drivers kind of get shuffled up here and there.
Sergio just signed a contract like 2 months ago to return next season, and he is not returning. So, as we know in sports, contracts mean little, really.
Yeah. So like you said, Cody, we're talking about Red Bull. Verstappen is still there, that second seat. I mean, there's talk about whether it could be Liam Lawson, it could be other folks that are out there. We'll know more as the weeks go on, because Sergio just made this announcement. So now I'm sure they knew it in the back of their head and they were looking around, but
there's some rumors that contracts have already been signed. Of course, Red Bull just announced this move today. So, maybe you give it a day or two before you announce your new guy out of respect for Checo. Sure. Likely in the next couple of days, we'll see an official announcement, but they're not making this move not knowing who's going to be in that car. They know who it's going to be. They probably already have them locked up and ready to go, and an announcement coming here in the next few days, I would assume.
They probably knew before the season was even over. They were like, sure, I don't think President.
There's been some rumors that his contract was signed in Las Vegas, Rod. So there you go.
That's true too. McLaren staying the same. Lando and Oscar both going to be in the McLaren colors there. So one of the biggest changes, obviously, is Ferrari. Charles Leclerc sticks around, but 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton will join him in the red livery. That's going to be a team.
So strange. It's going to be so strange to see Lewis over in the red, but of course, that's what a lot of drivers grow up, idolizing that team and wanting to be in those colors. He got the opportunity. Seems like it's going to be a good opportunity. Of course, Ferrari really showed strong at the end of the year. Looking forward to the 7-time champ. Changing colors, turning in the Mercedes engine for a Ferrari 1. And Charles Leclerc has been a really solid guy over there as well. You hate to see it for Carlos Sainz moving out of that team, but I think he'll have a good opportunity where he's going as well.
Oh, he's going to have a good opportunity to elevate that equipment, but we'll talk about that in a second. Leaving the seat is Lewis Hamilton, but gaining it is Kimi Antonelli. He'll be in Mercedes along with George Russell, who now becomes the principal driver there. We saw how George Russell kind of turned it up a notch at the end of last season, just try to prove that they did not make a mistake by leaving him alone by taking Lewis Hamilton out of the equation. So good for him. And look, we've seen Antonelli, we've seen Kimi in a few races here and there, but a good, solid young prospect, a good Formula 2 driver. So yeah, I mean, this is where they're putting their money now on this young talent, trying to tap the next Max Verstappen, I suppose.
Yeah, they're I mean, no doubt about the young part, right? Kimi is only 18 years old, Rod. Just turned 18 in August, actually. You imagine 18 years old, you get to replace Lewis Hamilton. Pretty crazy. But yeah, he comes from his father, Marco, longtime racer, and he is still racing, actually, even at the age of 60 in the Italian GT Championship. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he does. George Russell definitely made the strides you want to see for the leader, right? Because he came in as second fiddle to, in F1, you've got the first fiddle, you got the second fiddle. In most cases, I would argue McLaren, you don't have that. We'll see about Ferrari this year. I think Charles is probably still kind of the first guy. Lewis will be the support guy, but we'll see how that goes. But in Mercedes here, George slides over into that top guy seat. He's a very good long-term prospect for them as well. That's shown a lot of promise. So you'll really be expecting him to continue to elevate his game. And with Kimi, it'll be interesting to see how things go, right? I would maybe expect sort of like a Piastri type of deal. Start out a little slow, begin to figure things out, maybe kind of come on during the end of the season, and then second, third season in is when you really see him blossom.
Yeah. So, but Mercedes, they're definitely in for the project. I don't think they're going to expect him to come out of the blocks, Antonelli, and completely dominate. And, look, if he does, then good for him. If he doesn't,
odds reflect that. I mean, he's, yeah, as he should be. He's like 50 to 1 to win the championship. And you're not going to see a first year guy win the title. Probably hardly ever.
I would think not. So, all right. Well, that is it. And then there are no changes over at Aston Martin. Alonso and Stroll are both going to be there. Look, neither one of these guys really did a lot to impress last year, coming off of what they did in 2023. That was a very impressive run by Alonso in his first year with Aston. And then they just could not maintain that. In fact, they actually finished, because we used to talk about the big five, right? It was always, they finished fifth in that, a couple of 100 points behind, almost a couple of 100 points behind McLaren in that. So they did finish fifth, but I mean, it was way off the pace from what they're supposed to be in that constructors standings.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they kind of make any bigger moves to get more relevant. Alonso had that run 2 seasons ago where he was competing really, and then we just didn't see that from him this year. So yeah, it's keeping the same thing. There's something to be said for that. Of course, Lance Stroll probably not going to lose his ride. His father owns the team, so that's very helpful. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward.
I agree. New look Haas. No more Nico Hülkenberg. No more. See, the other guy's escaping me because I just forgot all
Kevin
about
Magnussen.
Kevin Magnussen. Yes, no more both of those guys. As I'm looking right at Kevin Magnussen, that's how forgettable he was this last season. But yeah, Hülkenberg and Magnussen gone. In their place, Esteban Ocon moving over from Williams. And then Ollie Behrman, the guy that we saw a lot in Ferrari, right? Especially in practices and a couple of those races, impressed enough to get himself his own ride over in Haas. This will be an interesting team to follow next year for points.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see kind of how this team develops. Ocon coming over, we saw a lot of good runs for him in Alpine cars. Obviously,
Alpine,
we sort of
Williams. That's my bad. So
yeah, that's okay.
That's me.
But we saw their progression throughout the season. They started the year, everybody quit after the first race, and they slowly got better. But he had some really good runs towards the end of the year. So sliding over into this Haas, we saw Haas have good runs last year. I mean, they really did. Mostly Hülkenberg, but some Magnussen as well. If they can trim down on the mistakes, I think that Behrman is a guy, another very young kid, but we saw him step in for Carlos Sainz when Sainz had his appendectomy and did really well. Got points in his first ever start in that Ferrari car. And then, we saw him also in some other practices and stuff, looked good. So great opportunity for him. He seems to be a good future project and probably a guy that will end up at a bigger team eventually, I would guess. But yeah, I'm excited about this Haas lineup. And I think that it seems like at the top of the board, Rod, you've got everything is condensed and there's a bunch more contenders. But even as you go down the field, like each team seems to be making steps towards being the best of the rest, which is very exciting as well.
And leveling out the playing field, to be honest with you, because this appears to be the way the grid's shaping up now, where the points finishes are not going to be as easy to predict as they've been in the past. Top 6 could stay the same. There's not a whole lot that could change the shakeup in that. But, when we start talking from 7th through 10th, that's where it starts to get interesting, including Alpine, who was obviously bringing back Pierre Gasly, losing Rod Esteban Ocon, not Williams. This is what happens when you just have a couple of weeks off not talking F1 and all you've been doing is talking NASCAR. Sometimes things just, in my brain anyways, is scattered. So apologies, don't troll. Rod doesn't know the difference between Williams and Alpine. Shut up. But Pierre Gasly sticking around, but they are bringing in Jack Doohan now to take that second seat. One of the guys that I think a lot of folks were looking at, and yet he still is now with Alpine. We talked about Alpine a couple seasons ago being almost perennially in the points. I think, again, this could be, just a points discussion as the weeks go on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Gasly, we saw a lot of really good runs from him. I feel like Gasly had a podium late on in the season there. Might have been Brazil in that crazy race, but still some good runs by them. Of course, we just talked about that with Ocon also. And then, Jack Doohan, the influx of youth continues over in F1, which is great to see. And this is kind of the next generation of drivers. So, I'm excited for that team also.
He was a reserve driver, so definitely keeping it in-house for there. The reason why I think I got it mixed up between Ocon and Albon, because Alex Albon is going to be staying with Williams. We just talked about the new teammate in the house. Now, this is one where he's going to come in, and I think Carlos Sainz is going to take over the number one role in that garage quite easily, the paddock quite easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And Williams is going to be, this is the team for me to really watch, Rod. I think that this is the team that could the quickest insert themselves into the conversation and maybe, be like Aston Martin was a couple years ago, at least with the Alonso side of things, where, oh, hey, it's the big four and also Williams, because Carlos Sainz is going over there. He's a great driver. We obviously saw that at Ferrari. This isn't going to be the equipment that he had at Ferrari, so it's going to be somewhat of a step back for him. But he's going to elevate that equipment. They've been building over there. They brought in, their team principal is a guy from Mercedes, was Toto's right hand for a long time, learned a lot. I can't remember his name at the moment, but I love the dude. Like every time you see an interview with him, he is very like, I like his vision. I like what they're doing over there. And I think that that's going to continue to grow. So this is the team that I have marked of the best of the rest that I'm probably going to be betting heavily on at the beginning of the season is this Williams team.
17 points they scored in the entirety of 2024. I have a feeling that tally will go up at least double, if not triple, in 2025. Last but not least, what do you do when you're the last place team? You fire everybody. Kick Sauber, 4 points last year. 4. To put it in perspective, we talked about who won, right? That was McLaren, 666 points. Holy cross. 666 points they win with. Kick Sauber scored 4 the entirety of the season. So they are getting rid of all their drivers. They're bringing in Nico Hülkenberg, who we just talked about leaving Haas, who, by the way, is really, I think that's a good addition, because for Kick Sauber, they need drivers that can be points contenders. And not that Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas couldn't have been at one point. They just weren't in that equipment. So I'm wondering now if Hülkenberg can turn this Kick Sauber equipment into a points contender on a week-to-week basis. He's joined, Cody, like you said, the youth movement continues, by Gabriel Bortoleto. He is a 20-year-old.
We got a lot of new guys to learn this year, Rob.
Yes, we do, in fact. But 20-year-old Brazilian, he signed a multi-year deal with Kick Sauber. So, look at this. The question of the season, Cody, is can they finally stop finishing last in every race?
It is hard to fall from the floor, Rod. So can't get much worse, I don't think. Hülkenberg, I think, is interesting. It's so weird because Bottas was obviously so good at Mercedes, but that was also in Mercedes elite days. He did all right over there. I think it was a lot equipment. So it's just going to be interesting to see what they do behind the scenes. I mean, this is definitely the team. If I was going to flag a team like, okay, I'm the most concerned about this one, and that shouldn't be shocking because they've already been the worst. But it would be this team, a new young driver. You're bringing Hulkenberg over, which he's been good at Haas. But yeah, we'll see. Jury's definitely out on these guys, and we'll have to see how they do.
I want to see how the points shape up or how the odds shape up for points finishes. That's what I want to see on a week-to-week basis for these guys, because Hulkenberg might be a very interesting play week to week for a top 10 finish. So,
yeah.
All right, we will be right back. We got the odds to actually break down and talk about each individual odds for these drivers. But I first want to tell you about MyBookie. We're brought to you by MyBookie.ag. MyBookie has been running on SGPN for years. You can check out their new and improved website, which, by the way, looks fantastic on mobile. Chef's kiss. I know people hate that, but I'm going to say it today because screw it. If you're a Grinch, be a Grinch. Plus, you get props for every game and live dealer casino, even new early cash out options. Hey, there's some great championship odds for F1 on MyBookie. I'm going to go over those in just a second, so stick around for those. Head to mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. That's mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN. We are also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's proud partner, Rhythm, is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models. It doesn't help you say it. It helps you do it in seconds and get predictions on betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. You can build your own model, copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or have Rhythm build a model for you. Now you can track props in the Rhythm app: NFL picks, NFL props, college football, college basketball, NBA. Rhythm has it all. I'm trying to build myself a model for Thursday Night Football to see how rushing yards Javonte Williams is going to have with Jaleel McClain. I'm ready for him to smash the over. So I'm building the model for that. I'll let you know how that turns out in a little while. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Like I said, there's actually some fantastic, not just championship odds, Cody, on MyBookie, but they've actually got driver head-to-heads as well. And we won't talk about those today. That's a different episode, right?
That's a future episode, Rob.
See, more content, but that's exciting. They actually do have that, and Constructors Championship winners and a bunch of props. So team head-to-heads as well. So that's going to be fantastic to listen to. But on mybookie.ag, which is a departure from sites like Caesars, mybookie.ag has Lando Norris at plus 181 to win the championship. Caesars has Lando at 2-1 and behind Max Verstappen at plus 163 to win. So which book is right?
Rod, can you imagine going in between the 2022 and 2023 season, looking forward and saying, Max Verstappen not going to be the favorite over on MyBookie for a championship anytime in the near future? Never would have saw it coming. But yeah, I would say it's a toss-up between these two guys. I think obviously Lando came on really strong at the end of the year. McLaren came on strong. They still had their inconsistencies, which could be an issue, right? But Red Bull did too, and it's not like Max was out there kicking everybody's ass either. So now starting 2025 fresh, clean slate at 0 points each, and knowing that they're now at the same level that Red Bull is, they are going to be pushing pretty hard to get Lando that championship. And while I think that both those McLaren guys are pretty equal footing, like I would say there's not a 1A, not a 1B. Early in the season, Lando's going to be the 1A, right? And if they get the opportunity to get him extra points, I think that the team will focus on that because he's been their lead driver. But we'll talk about Oscar more in a minute. But I think that these two guys should rightfully be the co-favorites, kind of depending on how you want to look at it, whichever book it is, because these are the two best guys in the best cars, I would say, from what we've seen lately.
TK saying that his has Lando at 3 and Max at 3.5. Woo! Really, though? Actually, so if you look at FanDuel, they have both Verstappen and Lando at 2-1. So they're both even there.
Time to get that flight down under so we can get down on those better odds, Rob.
Swear to God, seriously. But look, to put it in perspective, after winning 7 of the first 10 races, Max Verstappen, he only won 2 of the last 14. So whatever happened for the rest of the field, whatever happened to Red Bull in general, like the field caught up to him in a way that they hadn't caught up to him in the 2-3 seasons before that. So this just proves that there's something, a switch is flipped. And now I think we can entertain thoughts of somebody other than Max Verstappen. And plus 230 for Max Verstappen. This is one that I would bet today because it's not going to get any better than this no matter how long you wait. So if you really believe that Max is in for his 5th straight championship, which, by the way, that's tough. 4's tough, 5's tougher. I don't know that it's going to happen, but if you're convinced.
Yeah, I'm not going to bet either of these guys today. I think that you'll have opportunities maybe during the season to bet on them based on how things look. Obviously, F1, you know, if you're more of a NASCAR person, you don't pay as much attention to F1. F1 odds swing fucking wildly compared to NASCAR. NASCAR is very gradual, small changes here and there. F1 is massive, big swings based on how the wind is blowing. So you do have to watch for that. But I think that this is so close and it is such a toss-up. Neither one of them really jumps out to me. Now, that being said, if you would have told me going into last year, you want to bet Max Verstappen next year's championship plus 230, I'd have probably taken out a small loan and done that because he's dominated and he's won 4 in a row. So there's something to be said for that. Other teams have obviously caught up, but we even saw it down the stretch. He's still Max Verstappen. He's still great. He's got that dog in him, right? Like he's going to go out there and get it done. And we sort of make fun of him at times because he complains about every little thing. But, guys, the best do that because they're worried about every little detail. And he is that guy. So if you do believe in Max, you're a Max fan, a Red Bull fan, plus 230, this could be your best opportunity. So I would take it today if that's what you want to do.
But I will also say that in so much as we did this last season with Max anyways, these are so short. You can win right now on other bets when the season starts. You don't have to sit and wait on a plus 181 all season long.
Money, Rod. It's about the sweat.
That is
get the bets in now so you can sweat them out all the way through the season. Come on, Rod.
Yes, I guess.
Hashtag DGens only.
All right. Well, then let's get to some other odds that are actually better off on this one. Charles Leclerc plus 410 on my bookie. Lewis Hamilton at plus 760. So new teammates, right, bumped up next to each other. But here's my question, because Hamilton's won the championship more than I think just about anybody in the world, right? So it's plus 760 for him now in Ferrari equipment. I mean, not to say that obviously we know Mercedes was capable of winning a championship too, but does this new office, does this new look kind of bump him up to what could be his last championship in the sport?
Yeah, so I think this is interesting, and I think at plus 760 is when it starts to be like, if for nothing else to root for it, like again, sometimes it's not just about the bet, right? It's about the rooting for the bet, which I like to do at times. But you go back and you look, he dominated, right? The 7 championships, best in the world, much like we talk about Max now. And then him and Max went head to head for that championship 4 years ago, and Max wins it. And then it was just like Mercedes fell off a cliff. And it's like, okay, did Mercedes fall off the cliff? Did Lewis fall off the cliff? I think that we saw a lot this season that it was Mercedes that fell off more than anything because they made the rebound, and we saw Lewis be able to compete this season. Now, Ferrari was able to compete more than Mercedes was, so now you take one of the greatest drivers in history, you put him in better equipment, or what was better equipment for the last part of the season, you up that, okay, now what can we do here? You also have the question of, he's probably more viewed as the 2 at Ferrari, right? Like Leclerc is the guy, he's the future, he's been the guy over there already. You're bringing in one of the all-time greats, so there is something to that, but plus 760, it makes me interested in it because I think that the talent is still there, and we see it with older drivers throughout watching NASCAR as well, and every Father Time undefeated, Rod. It even caught Tom Brady, and that's always the example. If it could catch him, it's going to catch everybody. So, but has Father Time caught Lewis yet? We don't know because he's still competed well, and he's won a couple of races this past year. So I think that he's capable of doing it. Looking at both these guys, Leclerc at plus 410, obviously has a better chance to win. That's why the shorter number. I don't think the number's big enough for me to want to jump on it because I think that Lando and Max are still a notch above where Ferrari's going to be. But hey, if Lewis can come out and start the season well, and Ferrari, and all of a sudden Ferrari's thinking we could get the 8th championship with Jesus Christ, with Lewis here. Okay, and then they start pushing that button. Plus 760 might look pretty good in your pocket. So still undecided if I want to bet on that one. But of these two, Lewis is the side I would take. And I think that not a super strong case, but a case to be made.
So he's 8-1 over on FanDuel. So just a little bit of a bump there, but yeah, it's with the same ballpark, but it's right around that area. So yeah, between Shaw and Lewis, I probably would go with Lewis as well, just because not just of the number, but you got to think that this is going to be a breath of fresh air for him. He's going to have super fast equipment, and
we've talked about that before too. Like you get that, it's the same slug and same grind and same team. And then, and we sort of saw that with, I'm not comparing Lewis Hamilton to Corey LaJoie. Okay. Everybody calm down. But from, Corey's a guy that's out there, has a podcast, talks about it, but he had that change of going from, one team to another and suddenly looking at how everything was done. And it's like, I never thought of that over here. And that revitalization and you get pumped up and you're like, oh, I got this new job. This is a great place to work. And then you go out and you get shit done better because you're out of the rut of the grind that you've been in for so many years. Now you times 100 more than Corey LaJoie with Lewis Hamilton, right? So there's something to be said for that maybe spike that he could get from going somewhere new and repping the colors that he grew up rooting for and all of those things.
That's what Cody's going to be like when Dirty Mo Doe poaches him. He's just going to get there and be like, well, this is how the real people do it. And this is how it really done. Yeah, that's fine. Dirty Mo Doe's going to coach you and I'll have to find somebody else and it's okay. All right, let's move on.
They better bring the big brakes truck with them if they're taking me around.
Big dump trucks of money for Cody. That's what he wants.
Mark Martin did like our tweet today, so we're definitely on the radar.
He did. We're on their radar for sure. Hey, listen, man. Any publicity is good publicity. So, all right. Oscar Piastri is at 9-1. Kind of. This is where the cliff drops off. Oscar Piastri 9-1 on FanDuel. He's plus 910. So he's better off.
Money, Rod. Take it. Yeah. Take it. This is where I want to be. Oscar Piastri at 9-1. They're sleeping on the kid, Rod. Sleep away. Look, we saw this season Oscar be just as good, sometimes better than Lando. I said it at the top of the show. This is the one team where I don't know that they have a 1A, 1B. I think that they are going to try and list a 1A, 1B with Lando, but I think that Oscar might be able to force them into saying, nope, I'm the fucking better guy over here. I'm the captain now and take over. I think that Oscar has that in him. I think that if he could start the season out really hot and get going, suddenly 2-3 races in, he's right there with Max or he's right above Max. They're going to have to shift quick and say, look, we've got to get this guy the points now and try and take advantage of this. Oscar, it could be a very, very quick shift from, whoa, Lando was good and we saw it, but now, because this is only going to be Oscar's 3rd season. I mean, he's still new and coming in, and we've already seen it. Like, he had really good runs in his rookie year, had his rookie struggles too. Then you come into the sophomore season, wins multiple races, looks really good. Now, could he take that next step? I think personally, and to compare him, I guess, to a Tyler Reddick, I think that Tyler Reddick is that next guy in NASCAR. I think that Oscar Piastri is that next. Rod, I think that Oscar Piastri is the next Max Verstappen in F1, and I don't think that's a crazy take because I think other people think that as well, but I really think he is, and if he could take that leap now, you might look back in 5, 6, 10 years from now and be like, dude, do you remember that one time where we got Oscar Piastri at 9-1 win the championship, and now he's minus 120 every year because he's won the last 3 in a row or whatever the case is. I think he can be that next guy. You got to get ahead of it now. 9-1, plus 910 over on my bookie. Sign me up.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that with this, because you knew there was races where Piastri had to give way to Lando, and the team orders were to let Lando buy or to let Lando win or to and then you saw Lando give it up again to Oscar when it didn't matter anymore. He was like, oh, by the way, I owe you one. Here, take this one. And that's the games that they played back then. But when the constructor championship is not on the line anymore, or when you have the driver championship is maybe closer than it would have been between the three of them, if Piastri would have won well, who knows how many of those games would have been played. So I think this is a good speculation.
Like teams like this are going to be put in positions where they have to make that decision. Let's say things just start bad for Lando, not even of his own doing, right? He gets caught up in a wreck in the first race, doesn't score any points. Maybe they have a pit miscue in the second race, and Max wins one and Lando wins one, and all of a sudden you've got a two-man race at the top. You're in the third race, and now they're the fastest two cars. It's Oscar and Lando, and boy, we could really take a little bit of a lead with over Max here with Oscar. They're going to have to make that decision, and if whether it's Lando's fault or not, if Oscar can put them in the position to have to pick him, I think that they will pick him because they want to win. They want to win. They want to beat Red Bull. I think that they would like for it to be Lando because he's been with them longer and all this. But if it's the kid that's the next coming, like Zach Brown, don't give a fuck. He just wants to win, and he's going to pick the guy that's going to give him the chance. So you're getting one of these guys when his teammate is the favorite, co-favorite, second favorite, whatever, at 9-1, and he's on a pretty close playing field. This is a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, again, it's just there's not that big of in my opinion anyways, there's not that big of a chasm between Lando and Oscar that it needs to be an 800-point gap between these guys, or even a 700.
Honestly, I think that Oscar should probably be, and when the odds came out, I expected him to be the third favorite. I expected it to be Max, Lando, and then I thought Oscar would be next. I'm shocked that he's behind multiple other guys, really, and at a number as big as 9-1. I think I could see why they put him there, but I think that you need to take advantage of it at this price.
Here's where the like I said, the steep cliff drop, and the books can't even agree on this, where George Russell is next on the sheet. My bookie has him at 19-1. You go over to FanDuel, has him at 23-1. BetMGM has him at 14-1. Like Caesars has him at 20-1. No one can agree where George Russell falls. And honestly, Cody, I'm not high on a championship for him this year. I think he comes close, but I don't think he's got enough to win the championship this year.
So I think at 23-1 on FanDuel, I think that is worth a small bet. Don't go crazy. This isn't like I'm over here pounding the table for Oscar. I'm not pounding the table for George, but I do think that we saw steps from Mercedes. We saw a lot of steps from George, and George is a very talented guy. He's going to be in this series for a long time going forward. He's now the main man over there. He doesn't have to worry about Lewis. He's getting all the attention. He's got a young kid to be his sidekick. That's fine and cool, but he's the guy at Mercedes now. And let's say Mercedes finds something and comes out swinging. There's question in the McLaren camp. There's question in the Ferrari camp. There's no question in the Mercedes camp. George Russell's the guy. And the kid is going to be good and fine, have some spots we're going to pick him, but he's not going to compete for the championship. Russell could do it. I think that of the big manufacturers, I think that, it's McLaren, Red Bull. We'll see with their second driver. That it's going to be such an important decision what they do with that second driver. And we'll talk about that more when it comes to constructors title stuff. But, they're going to be up there at the top. Then you've got Ferrari and Mercedes is right there. I think with as close as we saw things get between all of them at the end, they could jump them. And Mercedes won, 5-6 races down the stretch. It's not like, they were always right behind, or they were there. A couple of them took advantage of some things, right, to be in the right position. But sometimes that's what you got to do. So I think at 23-1 on FanDuel, it's worth a little bit to get on George, especially because, this isn't coming into the season of, is Max going to win? What was his win total last year? I think it was like
10, right?
No, I think it was like 20, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't that many because there's only 26.
Yeah, and I think it was at least 16. It was very high. But we're not coming into the season with that. Now there's some parity. Now different people have chances. And, maybe teammates take away from other teammates because they're not willing to play games, whatever the case is. I think at the number, you could build a case for Russell, and I would lay a little bet on that.
Yeah, so last year he finished 6th in the driver's standings. His best finish in the driver's standings at all. Really, it's to me, I just feel like I feel like I said, there's only one, I think one spot that you could take if that's Carlos Sainz leaving the top 5 of that one. And we'll talk about him right now because he is actually 200-1 in the standings over there on Caesars. So 200-1 on Caesars to win the championship. He is 150-1 on my bookie. He is 140-1 on FanDuel, and he is Carlos Sainz 150-1 on BetMGM. I mean, look, can he take Williams to the championship? I don't think so, but
no.
I'm just saying.
I think it's pretty unrealistic. I mean, it would be a great story. They would make movies about it. That would be great, but it's just he's going to elevate that program, and I think that Williams is, like I said before, that team that's going to step into the conversation of, oh, hey, the Big Four and Williams, right? Like it was the Big Four and Aston. Like, but he's not going to win a championship. Not this first year. Maybe down the road they build back to that. Williams was once a legendary, storied program in F1, and they really fell on hard times. Maybe this is the RFK, Rod Roush, the top tier NASCAR team. They fell. Now they're rising from the ashes in 2025. I don't know that Williams is rising all the way to the top, but they are rising from the ashes. And I think that it's going to be a strong season. I'd be interested in season-long head-to-heads. Maybe you take him over some guys, stuff like that. But it's a big number. It's like, oh, fun and cool, but there's just such a small chance of it happening. And it just – there's almost no chance that it does happen. You know, could he win a race somewhere maybe? Maybe I think – that would be figure out which race he's going to win and try to hit him at a long shot there. But he's not going to win the championship in Williams.
I agree with you on that. But I mean, obviously it's a name you have to bring up because it's a big name that was coming off of last season. Interesting notes here as well in that Liam Lawson, 36-1.
Well, I think this is very telling that Liam Lawson is the driver listed next, right after George Russell and everything. So likely he's the second Red Bull guy. Like I said before, doesn't matter. And you can be like, well, a Red Bull at 36-1. Yeah, but Max Verstappen's the other one. Does not matter. Just don't bet it.
Yeah. And the same can be said with Tsunoda. 54-1 is fun, but it's not anything for the Racing Bulls. Kimi Antonelli, we just talked about, 64-1. He's in that Mercedes car. And after that, it's Alonso at 110-1.
There's just nobody else. I mean, yeah, it's nobody else that's worth even really talking much about because they don't have a chance. You know, there's that point where you cut it off and you're like, okay, these guys, it would take more than a miracle for one of these guys to actually win the full season driver's title. Can some of them win a race or get a podium? Or yes, maybe potentially that's another conversation, but win the driver's championship. I think that, you know, once you get to George Russell, you cut it off there. You can make a case for Russell. But I think after that, none of those guys have the shot to do it.
Yeah, this is one of those instances where you, even on a week-to-week basis, when we talk about winners, there's only 4 or 5 guys that we can say with any certainty that could do it. But yeah, championship, definitely the same, especially when you look at the way last season shook up as well. And, you know, the constructors that had 4 points, 17 points, 35 points. That means they weren't even scoring points over the course of the season. So that's going to be a jump for them to win.
Yeah, and that's actually sort of notable thing, right? Is you have to finish in the top 10 to even score points. A lot of teams, like Sauber, don't even do that. So, yeah, it's very, very hard for one of those teams to do it. You know, can there be a great climb of a Sainz and Williams, and are they in the conversation in 2026 when we go to completely new bodies and engines and everything is different? Oh, that's going to be an exciting time to talk, because especially if this parity hangs on, because then everything's going to be new. It's essentially the F1 next gen car to compare it to NASCAR. That's going to be very exciting. Not to get too far ahead, Rod, but yeah, it's F1, man. It's really, really in an exciting spot right now.
I agree. And I'm so glad, like I said, a couple of years ago that you got me into it, because it's just another form of entertainment that I get to enjoy. And we get to bring it to you now on a not as consistent basis, but we'll definitely still keep you updated as we go. Tomorrow, it's back to NASCAR as we talk Xfinity Series Championship odds. Cody, excited for that, because that means, once again, we're that much closer to the season kicking off.
Yeah, new faces, new names, some of the same old faces and old names. It's Xfinity Series, always an interesting one to talk about. So I'm pretty excited about that. And can't wait to talk about it, Rod. In the meantime, follow me over on the X at Husker_Zeeb. You can find all my stuff there. I got a Penn State SMU breakdown available over there for sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Check that out. Ton of motorsports articles. NFL game previews are still going out. Chiefs Texans is already up for Saturday rather is when they play. So check that out. And see you guys tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez, linking about everything I've got going on, whether it's here, whether it's my first touchdown picks for Sportsbook Review. Still got time, a little bit of time to check if you're listening live to my pro women's hockey pick for tonight. So we got that going on. Toronto playing. I missed last night by a single freaking goal, but we'll bounce back and hit him tomorrow or tonight rather. So have some fun with that. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow to talk Xfinity Series Championship. But in the meantime, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow. Let's go racing and let it ride.
And as sweet as a ending, cast away all the miles.